Welcome to the Trader, a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, a writer working in unscripted TV development, and this podcast is usually dedicated to covering different countries' versions of The Traitors. However, we've been doing some other things, recently covered Netflix's Million Dollar Secret, and are now covering the UK version of Genius Game, airing on ITV and hosted by acting star David Tennant. And joining me again is reality TV guru and my regular co-host for all things strategy games. It's the other David, David Bloomberg. David, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the other David. I am
Yeah.
slightly less well known than David Tennant.
Just a little.
Just a little. Yeah, I mean, maybe in some circles I'm more well known. Who knows? It's possible. If you
Yes.
only watch like Survivor and you don't know Doctor Who or any other British show that he's been on, then maybe you know me more. Um, I feel like I've been doing this yeah, about as long, maybe longer than he's been acting, about as long as he's been acting. I've been covering, of course, people know reality TV for 25 years as of just a couple weeks from now. So, and now I've hit it even bigger because we were mentioned on Ben's podcast.
Yes. Yeah, Ben from Genius Game. He's listening. He's maybe even left a comment or two on
Yeah.
the YouTube page. So, yes, we got a shout out on his coverage, didn't we?
Yes, we did. And my mini videos as well, which, as you had predicted, I did one of Ben to the Benny Hill music last week. So
Yes, that was my favorite. Now, David, our episode 3 coverage has had even more YouTube views than our episodes 1 and 2 coverage. So, if that's the sign of a pattern emerging, this episode will have even more, which means the pressure is on us for some top quality content. I hope you're prepared for that.
I'm always prepared for that.
Yes. Now, before we get into episode 4 of Genius Game, I am going to revive a segment of the podcast that has been missing for a while, but I think is very necessary today. And that is my updates from the world of the traitors and other shows we cover in TT News. As part of the BBC Proms series, The Traitors is coming to the Royal Albert Hall on Saturday, the 26th of July. The press release says Claudia Winkleman will be our host as we explore this worldwide television phenomenon with its tense and haunting sound world. Ooh, from
Now, this is the
epic.
real Claudia Winkleman, not the one that
This
you
is
met.
this is real, actual Claudia Winkleman. I met Claudia Winkleman, a drag
Yeah.
impersonator,
Okay,
at
that's
the
right.
live screening of the Traitors finale last time. This is real Claudia. Um, we're told that from epic classical orchestral favourites to operatic excerpts with betrayal at their heart, this unique prom also features melodramatic chart tracks heard on The Traitors with a gothic symphonic twist. Um, conjuring the misty intrigue worthy of a Highlands castle are the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, hooray, and BBC singers, as well as, ooh, special guest vocalists. There's a new take on that famous theme tune, a selection of music from the show, and some familiar figures and faces from the challenges and round tables. I wonder who they'll be. Maybe I have a little bit of inside info on this.
Ooh.
A musical invitation into the world of the Traitors for all fans, whether you're a faithful or a traitor. There will be two performances of the concert, a matinee at 3 p.m. and an evening show at 7:30. And if you follow the Trader on Instagram, you might have seen that I have bagged myself a ticket. I'll be attending the 3 p.m. concert in case any listeners want to come and say hi. Although finding me in the Royal Albert Hall might be tricky, it is a very huge place.
You'll be the one in the Tradar sweatshirt.
Yes, I'll be wearing this so you can
Yeah.
find me very, very easily amongst those thousands of people.
Okay, now two things. One, you said that they'll be trying to, use the music to, bring us to well, I won't be there. The people to a Scottish castle. Are they going to be pumping in cold, humid air too? Is that?
Yeah, they'll be have rain machines
Yeah.
creating just drizzle constantly to really make us feel like we're in Scotland. Yeah.
And then the second thing is that you called it a prom. Now, a prom here in the US is generally a high school dance.
Yeah.
I, how is this a prom, or
Uh,
does the word have a different meaning there?
yeah, it has a different meaning. We have high school proms too. I think it's sort
Okay.
of it has a different meaning. It's a big concert. It's a sort of a classical concert as a prom, and every year the BBC do a series of proms, and it's classical concerts and various themes. I don't know why they have the same word, and I mean it's short for promenade, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's just a sort of series of concerts.
I
So
didn't know if you were going to get a tux and go dancing and
yeah, I'll pose for a photograph with my arms around
yes,
someone with a flower on my wrist or their wrist or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
make a
uh,
promposal to get them to go with you. Do they
exactly.
have those in England? Promposals?
I heard of this. Not for me. So yes, anyone, UK, England, London, sounds like it's going to be a great time.
Yes.
Secondly, Netflix's Million Dollar Secret has been officially renewed for a second season. David and I covered the show here on the podcast, so we're excited about this news. Netflix reports the competition series where players must hunt down and eliminate a mystery millionaire among their ranks is back for season two with an even twistier game of cat and mouse. Just like in season one, a group of competitors will travel to a lakeside estate, sorry, known as the Stag, for the chance to win $1 million, which is awarded to one player at the start of the game. But with the funds comes major complications, as the money's got a big target attached. Check back on netflix.com/tadum for more updates about Million Dollar Secret Season 2 as they're disclosed. And of course, the best thing you could do to prepare is A, watch season one, and then B, listen to our podcast coverage
Yes.
so that you're fully up to speed on the best and worst player strategies and our interviews with some of the season's key players.
And remember, you apparently can bring in an MP3 player and load it up with those podcasts,
Yes, so you could even
while you're
apply,
there.
you could be a
Yes.
contestant and
Yes.
listen to our podcasts to become the best
Yes.
contestant possible.
I'll have to look. Did it include information on how to apply? This is
Not on the Netflix news page, but somewhere online there must be information about this. Maybe
okay.
it's too early. Maybe they've not opened yet. But yes, David, I would like to see you apply for this.
I will. I mean, I can't get on the traders because they only use people who have already been on other shows in the US. So, I've got to try for a traders like show instead.
Yes, or skip the border and go straight to Traitors Canada.
I mean, I could do that. They are going to be our 51st state, according to some delusional people. Yes.
Yes,
So,
I look forward to that for you.
yes.
Now, before we get into episode four of Genius Game, I've got a few notes from listeners on some of the things that David and I talked about last week. Firstly, this is from Kevin. Kevin emailed to share his thoughts on this sort of Ben being torn between giving his token of life to different people. So Kevin says, just wanted to share my thoughts about the end of episode three, where Ben seemed torn between giving his spare life token to either Bodalia or Charlotte. Kevin says Bedalia had asked Ben to give him the token if he wins because he was scared a Manfi would choose him to be in the deathmatch. Charlotte had also asked for the token because she felt she was at risk as she was a target, presumably from winning the first game, being seen as a strong player, or having the most garnets before the result of the latest game. Ben said he would make an enemy of whoever he didn't choose. However, at the end of the main match, everyone knows Ken was the deathmatch candidate. And unless he had any beef with Bedalia, Bedalia is no longer at risk from being targeted because the Manfi's not the one choosing. So Ben should have just said to Bedalia, you don't need it anymore. I'm going to give it to Charlotte because she's more of a target. At the time, they didn't know Ken would choose a previous deathmatch contestant, but really the person with the most garnets should be a big target. So basically, yeah, Kevin is saying Charlotte surely was the logical choice. Bedalia probably didn't really have anything to fear.
Yeah,
Any thoughts on that, David?
here's the problem, and part of this is backed up by some things that Ben said on his podcast and some just by watching. Bodalia hates anyone who lies.
Yeah,
I mean, you tell him the smallest white lie, and that's it. You're his mortal enemy for life,
yeah,
from what we can tell. So while Bodalia may have worried about being the target of Amanfi, once Ben said, I will give you the token of life, There is no logic. There's
Yeah.
no amount of logic. It went out the window. He had Ben's word.
Hmm.
Ben couldn't go back on it, or
Yeah.
else that would be it for their relationship.
Yeah.
And I think this episode, as we'll discuss, demonstrates that with him.
Yeah. I guess that, I mean, the solution would have had to be for Ben to initially say, I'll give you on this condition, on the
Yeah.
condition it's a man fee. However, if not, I may have to
He,
pick someone else. He
I
may have
mean,
had
he
to push
also
it away.
didn't expect Charlotte to bluntly ask him for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
After he had already promised it. I don't think he expected that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and that is one thing again that Ben addressed in his episode 4 video is there is a lot of people who are playing this game with an expectation of honesty and who
Mm.
are getting upset even at lies that you are being forced to told, like when Amanfi had to lie in the zombie game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting because it seems it, seems very British reality TV, in that
Yeah.
one reason Survivor has not made it there, one reason you have a much different version of Big Brother, is that lying on British reality TV just does not seem to go over well with the players or the public.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why the traders works. I still have not figured that one out. It's
Yeah.
okay. I've said it before. It's okay to lie in a castle, but
Yeah.
it's not okay to lie in other situations. I guess royalty has prepared them for that one. But the the players here do remind me of the Survivor UK players getting
Mm.
mad if anyone lies.
Yeah, I have trouble with it as well, especially because the Genius game is billed as a game of manipulation and gameplay.
Hmm.
So it feels like it's kind of supposed to be built into the
Yeah,
concept. I guess with the traitors, I think it works because it's such a false world that they're being everything about it is.
right,
I mean, so is Genius Game. That's not like they're not living in a real house, but I guess because Traitors feels like a parlor game and they're wearing cloaks and it's such an exaggerated setting, it's so clearly a game about deception. That's the base. Like you're kind of expected to do that, and the audience expects the players to do that. Maybe with Genius Game, some of the players think, no, it's just a test of intellect, and
right.
you can win just by being smart, and maybe you can win just by being smart, and maybe you can get through this game without having to betray people. But I mean, it, I also don't understand people being sort of personally offended when someone tells them a lie in the game.
Yeah. I
It's
mean, I do wonder if traders works because people are literally assigned the roles of traders.
yeah, so
Like
they have no
you,
choice.
yeah, you are assigned it. Whereas in this, it switches all the time who has to
Sure.
lie and who can lie. And well, no, you could have told me the truth. You could have been upfront, like Ben was about the undercover agent,
Yeah, yeah,
and someone else was, Charlotte was about being the zombie, I think. Um, and so maybe that's part of it is, the traders, you have people who are assigned to be the liars. Now,
yeah,
you and I know, of course, that faithful should lie too. But they, the viewing story is that the traders are the evil liars,
yeah,
So maybe that, maybe we've solved the mystery there
sure.
as to that. And then, for Survivor UK, there is no similar. There's nobody assigned to lie. If you lie, you're making a choice to lie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's an interesting difference about
mhm.
viewing audiences that we often come back to. And similarly, we've talked about maybe viewing differences between the Korean original and this version. And there's been a lot of comments on our YouTube
Mhm.
videos about people who've watched the original Genius game and saying, I think it works in Korea for this reason. Actually, the next comment from YouTube I have is kind of about this. So I've taken this comment from Apple Green, although a few people also mentioned this and said, to be fair, this main match the Codebreaker from the previous episode, and the first main match, the Vault Heist, are actually new games that are not in the original version. Only the zombie game is from the original. The second death match, the Noughts and Crosses or Tic-Tac-Toe, is also new. The first matching game, the third death match is poker, are from the original. So
Hmm.
credit to the designers for making some new games, and for the players, especially Ben, to still create a game-breaking strat for the new game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we ever said all the games were directly from there. Ben knew the zombie game and knew immediately how to break it because he had been studying it.
Yeah.
The other game, the one that we had last week, that was just Ben immediately thinking on his feet and being able, from all of his studying these games and working through them and everything else, being able to know, okay, here is, what I need to do
Hmm.
in order to make this work.
Yeah. Yeah. The final comment I have for now, we have a couple of listener questions at the end of the episode.
Hmm.
This is from Bonita153 on YouTube. Uh, you and I, we sort of made some jokes about Pasha last time, saying she doesn't play Monopoly, she doesn't play card games. But Bonita says, I think Pasha and Budalia were approached for the show, so maybe they didn't apply, maybe they were cast deliberately. I recognised their faces in episode one. Pasha was in a viral clip talking about resident Doctor Pay and strikes with James Whale. And I'd come across the Dr. DJ page, that's Budalia. They had some level of social media presence prior to the show. I can believe Pasha when she said she doesn't play games. So that makes sense. That often happens. And they shows that, yeah, some people apply, even the traitors. Some people go out of their way
Hmm.
and apply and they get lucky and they get through the process. But a lot of casting in TV is a casting team reaching out to people they think would make good TV. And, I think you and you've discovered Pasha also has maybe sort of a pageant background, modeling.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
can understand the casting team thinking, wouldn't it be cool for a Genius game if we had like a beauty pageant contestant? Although they didn't play that up in the show. But
No, I think, I mean, she is a doctor, and
yeah,
that aspect of things. And I just think that, you can often, not always, but often tell when people are cast, recruited rather than go through the process. And
yeah,
I think in her case, it explains a little bit about her, having trouble following some of the rules and uh, um, not playing these games at home, whereas most would. I think in Bodalia's case, if he was indeed recruited, that explains a lot about his view on honesty rather than understanding that these are
yeah,
games of dishonesty.
yeah. It's really interesting when even when we covered Million Dollar Secret recently on
Hmm.
Netflix. When I checked out some of the players' Instagram pages, they had thousands and thousands of followers. And I think sort of Harry from UK Traitors season two already had a social media presence. So it's sometimes you suddenly realize, oh, maybe that's part of the reason this person was cast. They have a
Yes.
presence. They're kind of known. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. I think there may be one or two other players still in Genius Game who were cast for other reasons. Maybe they didn't apply. I don't know if they're natural geniuses. That's all I'm saying. So, with that in mind, I think we can head into episode four of this season, maybe the only season there will be of Genius Game UK. We start off with a little recap. We're reminded that, of course, Ben won last time by bending the rules of the Codebreakers game and making everyone trust him enough to let him win. Secretly, Ben targeted Ken, who ended up in the deathmatch where he defeated Pasha in a game of Poker Face. And Ben ran around lots. That's my recap. Uh, as episode 4 begins, we've got the arrivals, the game setup. Bex and Amanfi arrive to a set of closed suitcases laid out on pedestals. Ken's really happy to be back. He's got a bit of confidence. He's got an extra garnet. He's feeling good about his gameplay and his sort of position in the game. He reckons, uh, he's probably not going to be chosen anytime soon because he did so well previously.
Yeah.
We focus quite a bit on Indy's VT. some signposting there for the audience, perhaps. Immediately, at the start of these episodes, when someone gets a little bit of focus and we find out about their background, it's kind of a clue they're going to be important in this episode for some
Yeah.
reason. So we find out that Indy is in a poker society, talks about being a high achieving academic. Um, Charlotte's still annoyed that Ben didn't give her his extra token of life last time, and now she's thinking she can't trust anyone in this game, especially Ben.
Yeah, did
Meanwhile, Ben,
you catch those equations on Indy's computer that she was looking at in the clip there?
no, I didn't.
Yeah, if we were playing the lying game that we play, during other seasons, I'd make something up, but I don't know what they were. They looked very complicated though. So
Yes, they went over my head. I didn't even try and take it in. Meanwhile, Ben is aiming to make everyone see him a bit more differently today because, last time we talked about it. He
yeah.
kind of took charge. He rounded everyone up. He controlled the entire episode pretty much. So now he wants to take a bit more of a back seat, which I think he does actually in the episode. He wants to seem like more of a team player who's just willing to help whoever needs help.
Yeah, I think his line is funny. As long as I don't have some crazy role, I promise to be normal. And and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Even without taking control, even lying low and basically doing nothing. I'm not sure he ever traded. He may have traded once. Um,
I think he traded one time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, he still managed to be a focal point of this episode,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least of the some of the more dramatic parts of
Yeah,
the episode.
yeah, yeah. Some interactions with Bex, which
Yes.
make for good TV. I'm sure
Oh
the
yeah.
producers are happy about that. Um, so David Tennant appears on screen to explain our game today. First of all, we're halfway through the show, he tells us, and he reveals the Garnet League table. Bedalia has one, Bex, Amanfi, and Alison have two, Charlotte and Indy have three, and Ben and Ken are in the lead with four Garnets each. That means the total is £21,000 in the prize pot because each Garnet represents a grand, and every time someone leaves, they have to pass their garnet on. So all these garnets are essentially being narrowed down to whoever ends up left in the game. Uh, the main match is called Lights Off. Here are the rules. I have to. We talked about this before we recorded. I think this is the most straightforward game so far.
Yes.
It doesn't take too much. It's funny when the rules were being explained by David Tennant. I was waiting for what's the next twist? Like, there's going to be another
Yeah.
set, but actually, it's kind of straightforward. I didn't need to watch it like three times to understand. So the players have a case of six coloured cubes each. They're aiming to trade cubes until they have a cohesive colour collection, kind of like solving a Rubik's cube, having one side of your Rubik's cube all matching. However, there are five sets of eight normal cubed colours, but then only seven whites and one black. In the dealer room, they'll open their case, see the blocks illuminate for 5 seconds before they all return to black. So they have to memorize what's actually in their case. And they have pen and paper in the show. They can write down. A lot of them do write it down.
Well, that's the funny thing because when at first I didn't realize that they were using pen and paper, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have to memorize theirs, and then they have to remember what they trade, and then they have to remember, and then at some point I saw them running around with paper. I think it's later with Bex,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more sense that
yeah,
they could do that instead. I mean, you
yeah,
still have to remember it long enough in the dealer room to go outside and write it down.
yeah.
But after that, you're golden.
Although, funnily enough, it seems like Ken doesn't, because there's a point we'll come to later where he does seem hesitant. He seems worried for a moment that he's remembered it wrongly. So I got the feeling he didn't write this down. Um, but it all turns out fine.
Yeah.
After they've seen their blocks, they memorize them, they go back to black. They play the game, they can trade. At the end of round one, David Tennant will reveal which colour has been collected together the most, but not which case that's in, so we won't know who has those colours. There are extra rules. They can't trade blocks with the same player more than once in a round. Okay, that's fairly simple. And if a player feels they have a complete set, they can lock it in. The colour of their cubes will be revealed to them. If they do indeed have a set, the game ends. The winner will get three garnets or five if they've managed to collect six of the white blocks. However, the player who finishes with the black block in their case will become the deathmatch candidate. Uh, there kind of is an extra rule, but first of all, we see them all pick their case at random before the final rule is added. This final rule that does only gets used once. It really doesn't affect the game much,
Oh, yes. Well,
unless some
we
players do
only see
use
it
it.
used. We
Yeah,
only see it
yeah.
used once. As it turns out, Ben said that someone used it on Amanfi for the
Ah,
final round,
okay, okay.
which may have messed things up. Actually, I think Indy. I think he said Indy used it on Amanfi
Hmm.
for the final round. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't come into play, so
Yeah,
they probably just cut it for time.
yeah. So this final rule is that players each have one padlock, an imaginary padlock, and
Right.
they can use it to padlock another player's case. That means that in the following round, that player can't trade, they can't lock in if they think they've got a set. It's kind of like the tip-offs in episode one when you could
Right.
kind of block whatever someone had tried to heist from the vault, similar
Right.
to that. So there's some strategizing. We've got the cube reveals to get the game going. Ben tells Bedelia he needs reciprocal help today after he helped out Bedelia yesterday or whenever they filmed
Hmm.
with his extra
It was
token of life.
yesterday. Yeah, these are days in a row. So,
Okay, okay. Charlotte and Indy agree that they want to start trading as soon as possible. They think that's, they want to play the game. They want to do it the way you have to do it. I don't know if there is a trick loop in this game to manipulate it or get out of it.
oh, I'm sure there is. I mean, like they could have chosen, and I think Ben brought this up. I don't think I came to this myself. They could have chosen as a team, kind of like they did in the very first game,
like
to
one player to
Paul.
target.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
lock that play, find out, who has the black, and then lock
just
that
yeah,
person every round
true. Yeah.
till the game was over. Um, so yeah, there are ways to do it. My immediate thought, and maybe it wouldn't have worked, but my thought was if I had the black cube, I would wait until the absolute last round to trade it.
Mm,
That way I'd be sure it didn't accidentally come back
come
to me.
back. Yeah, yeah.
Whereas Ken does the exact opposite. He's like, nope, got to get rid of this right away.
Hmm.
And it worked for him.
Yeah. Um, I guess it worked. Well, we'll get to it, but I
Yeah,
guess it worked because he immediately tells Amanfi what he's
right.
done. So he's sort of in on where it is now. But one by one, they begin entering the dealer room. Indy's first. She reminds us that the players need to memorize their cube colors, and just to it's just a way of reminding the viewers
Yeah.
what's happening by having one of the players narrate it themselves. The reveal order is Battaglia. Next, he says that having the black cube isn't necessarily bad, as you can use it as leverage to not pick someone for the death match. I didn't really know what he meant here. Uh, um, I think someone says something similar later, like, "Oh, having the black cube could be a good." I guess he meant. I don't know what he meant. If you tell someone and say, "I've got it," I promise I won't give it to you if you don't pick me. If you lose, it seems a strange way of looking at it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm not sure.
yeah. Charlotte's up next, but then Bex, we see Bex just goes, "Oh shit." I think she's struggling to memorize immediately, but it's okay. She's got her pen and paper. She writes it down. As we know, she keeps a really tight control over who's got. Well, I think she messes up at one point, but she's desperately trying to keep track of who's got what. Next is
Yeah, from
Allison. Yeah,
from
yeah.
either again, either from Ben or from someone else that I saw. Bex apparently had some problems with the notes and messed up some things and abbreviated things like BL. And it was like, does BL mean blue or black? Um, and so, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and you don't want to mix up the black. That's like
no,
a really important one in this game. Allison is next, then Ben, then Amanfi, and finally Ken. They probably didn't go into the room in that order. They just show us Ken going last because he gets the black. Um, he says also like having the black is an advantage because I think he means just at the start it's an advantage.
hmm
It's an advantage to have it straight away because at least then you know where it is and you've got more opportunity to get rid of it rather
right.
than receiving it in the very last round and you're screwed. So the game begins. Ken immediately gets into a room with Charlotte and Amanfi. He asks them about blue cubes. They take a long time to respond, seemingly before saying yes, so they're quite tentative at the beginning of the game. I think that eases up. As the game goes on, I think most of them are fairly honest about what they have. There's obviously, apart from the black cube, I don't think there's lots of people completely lying about what colors they have. A lot of them just want to play to win,
Yeah.
in the way that you're supposed to on a sort of very
Or at
basic
least
level.
play not to lose.
Yeah, yeah. They discuss who should try to win, sort of who should bank. They're kind of grouping together. It's like
Hmm.
they're saying like who should we let win, so that they get a token of life, and do we just work as a team here? They seem to agree that Ken won't need a token of life because again, like he said at the start of the episode, he feels quite confident. Probably no one's going to choose him. He did really well in the poker face death match. Amanfi asks that if either of them have the black cube, they reveal it now. Ken just lies about it at this point.
Yeah.
Charlotte leaves, Amanfi quizzes him again, and he's saying, if you give me the black, at least promise you'll help me get rid of it. And they shake hands without Ken actually denying that he has it. Meanwhile, in the other room, we've got Bedalia. Bedalia's telling Bex, Indy, Ben, and Allison that he's playing to win, and he wants to collect the whites, and he'll give a token of life to whoever helps him. Although he can't give it to everyone. He's only got one.
Yeah, that's exactly the note I have. He's like, I'll give immunity to whoever helps me. Well, you're gonna need at least like four people to help you. So I don't quite get that.
Yeah. And also, I just sort of thought, I mean, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but why should they help him over anyone else? I don't know what reason he's giving for them to say, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Unless it's because he's starting with like two whites. So he's saying, like, the chances are I'm the best person. Just sort of it'll be easier for me to collect them, so you might as
Hmm.
well go with me. Uh, while they're having this chat, though, Charlotte conspicuously is eavesdropping through the grating, which made me. I didn't realize there were sort of little holes in the walls. It's obviously designed that way, I guess, so you can maybe overhear people. But, they spot her straight away and they ask her about the black cube, claiming it must be with her little group because it's definitely not in this room. And they are
Yeah.
right, but they can't be that sure.
Yeah,
Like,
it's definitely, we are all honest people here. We would never tell a lie. And it's like, come on.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it happens throughout the episode. I think some of them are quite naive, or they're just so trusting of one another, or not everybody, but some of them.
Hmm.
So yeah, that made me laugh. And they're like, "Well, it's definitely not in this room. It must be in the other room." And they're right by chance, but they could so easily have been wrong.
Right.
Amanfi and Ken decide to trade in the atrium. And Amanfi believes they're trading blue for purple. In reality, of course, Ken has just cursed Amanfi with the black cube. And even right after the swap, Amanfi's saying, "You didn't give me the black, did you?" Um, I, I wonder why he's so paranoid, and if he's this paranoid, why he traded? Maybe you're just paranoid with whoever you trade with.
Yeah.
But Ken in private immediately does confess what he's done, and he tells Amanfi, "Yeah, I gave you it, but I'll help you get rid of it." At this point, I was a little confused. I mean, I think I can figure out the answer. It's the end of the round all of a sudden, and I don't know how that's decided. I'm assuming it's a time limit.
Yeah. Cause I think later on there were countdowns.
Yeah, it just sort of seemed quite sudden to me. I thought,
Right.
oh, the round's ended. Okay. So David Tennant reveals that the red, blue, yellow, purple, white are all still tied. So no one is really leading anything at this point. Bex asks Samanfi about his swap and whether he got what he wanted, and he sort of vaguely nods. He says very little. I think he makes it quite clear something's up. And in his confessional, he's saying he's just desperate to get rid of the black cube, and he's going to use Ken's guilt to help, coerce Ken into helping him out. It's time for round two then. Off we go. Amanfi and Ken reveal what's happened to Charlotte. They tell her the truth. She reckons the only way forward is to focus on one person collecting the whites, win five garnets. Again, presumably by working as a team, picking one of them to be the collector of the
Hmm.
whites, share the garnets out between them. Bex appears, and the other group are very annoyed with
Which,
her.
yeah, for Charlotte to tell them, those two, that one of them, one of the three of them should collect all the white. You're three. The other side is five.
Yeah,
How are you going to convince five people
to
to give
switch.
up their
Yeah,
whites for what seems to be a quote unquote opposing group here? It does not seem like a very realistic game plan there.
yeah, and I think it sort of quickly goes out the window anyway.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't. They don't really return to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bex comes along. Her group are especially
Literally running.
Ben.
Like she just runs down the
She's
hall,
like,
and there is nothing subtle about it whatsoever.
yeah. I mean, at least, and she's just sort of she argues about this with Ben later. She's like, well, I'm not being secretive about it. Like, of course I'm going to speak. Like, she doesn't see the problem, but
Yeah, but
her
I
group
think
are annoyed. They're like,
that
no, you're in our group. You can't keep doing this.
I mean, that's the thing. It's funny because she talks to the group with Amanfi and Charlotte and
Yeah,
Ken and says, "Oh, everybody trusts me. I'm in a great position. I can go back and forth." While the other people are like, she's shifty and she does this all the time and she needs to stop doing it,
yeah,
and it's like, and then of course, yeah, when they all confront her and she's like, I haven't shared anything. I just have my notes in my hand. I haven't actually told them anything from them. Oh, yeah, that definitely convinces me. You conveniently have your notes out
yeah,
instead of like in your pocket. You just conveniently have them out, but you haven't told them anything. And she doesn't seem to understand why this was suspicious, why this was bad. It's like they all, in confidence, shared their information with you. You were the note taker. And then you ran down the hall to talk to the other
yeah,
people. It's, I, I understand. I mean, Ben seems like an emotional guy. He's had a rough few days here. And yes, he blows it up. They get mad. He walks away, and then she says something like, "Well, she says, what's wrong with Benjamin?" And it's like you're not getting it. And then she goes back and says she's never screwed him, and it's like, yeah, but you're acting like you have, even if you haven't. You
yeah.
are acting like you have.
I guess she's like she's one of the players that you talked about at the top of the episode. She's not really a game player. I think she maybe thinks this is a different kind of show than it. This is just a sort of straightforward like, quiz show to her. It's just a game show. I don't think she's appreciating the nature of how you might have to win, and that there's deception that might be necessary.
Well, she clearly knows deception is necessary because she's using it.
Well,
But she even later says, "Well, I'm not, the genius on the game side. I'm the genius on the social side," or words
mm,
to that effect.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and yeah, there are many different ways to be a genius. We'll see if that ends up working for her in the long run.
yeah.
But in this case, it's not that genius on the social side, I feel like, because she is literally breaking social bonds here.
Yeah, and I think her naivety even shows at this point because she's saying to the Amanfi's group, she says she claims that she knows who's got the black cube. She's narrowed it down to two people. She says it's
Mm-hmm.
either Bedalia or India. Of course, completely wrong.
Yes.
And Ken, Charlotte, and Amanfi don't correct her. Well, I mean, why would they? Because,
Right.
she'll just go straight back to the other group as far as they
Yeah.
can tell. So I don't think she appreciates. They're not going to be honest with her. Um, and she naively also tells them that she's got two whites. Um, Ken claims that he does too. I think he actually does have two. And he says that Charlotte has one. And they hatch a plan to work together. They're going to collect all five. Now, like Bex is part of this, and I thought at this point, oh, they're going to give her the black. I just thought she's lined up perfectly to fall into a really easy trap. But it doesn't work out that way.
I mean, remember that in theory, Amanfi and Bex have that final two deal.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe he's not gonna. He's still sticking to that.
Yeah.
Maybe. And yeah, yeah, you're right. This is the point where she's saying her strength is everyone trusts her. She doesn't betray people. Um, she can't be in a death match. She's not as good as the game as I just thought you're being way too honest. Like saying, "Hey, I'm really bad at games." Like, don't tell everyone that. So, um, Bedalia appears to ask Bex, did you share anything? You talked about this. She says, no, I haven't. And there's a conflict between her and her original group. Ben and Bex argue. She's suspicious and so on. It's funny because when I'm writing these notes, I thought, Ben and Bex, Ben and Ken. In Genius Game, you can only have conflict with someone who has almost the same name as you.
Yeah.
Or
And
if
as I'm looking at my notes, I've already seen a couple places where I wrote Ben but meant Ken, so I'm having to think on the fly about these things as well, because
yeah, it's
it's
tricky.
like, I'm telling you, vote people out who have similar names to you. Just get rid of them.
Indy tries to get some information from Charlotte and Ken. They're not going for it. Allison and Bedalia agree to trade red for white in exchange for protection if one of them wins. Uh, it turns out she's not actually collecting reds. She just wants to collect one so she can then trade it with Indy for a blue, which they then go on and do. Bex and Ken agree to swap, leaving her with three whites. He says he trusts her more than anyone, although he's still not telling her about where the black cube is, so doesn't trust her that much.
Hmm.
Bedalia and Amanfi have a chat back and forth about wanting to win, how Bedalia wants to collect the whites, and Bedalia also claims he knows who has the black. And of course, Amanfi just plays dumb. They agree to swap, and
Oh, well,
Amanfi.
first, come on,
Oh,
come on.
oh.
First, Bedalia says, well, I know it's not you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, about that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm, I think I know the answer. Part of me wonders, is that like a play to see how Amalfi responds? It probably isn't from Vidalia. I think
No.
he's just sort of that's what he believes. And yeah, of course, Amalfi's like, oh no, yeah, no, not me. Uh, so they swap, and yeah, Vidalia's screwed. He's got the black now. Uh, Vidalia and Ken share what's just happened before the next round of results is announced. So here are the results from David Tennant. The red, blue, and white hold the majority with three blocks each. So, and of course, again, David Tennant doesn't say who has those. So, Badalia assumes everything's fine. He thinks he's got the three whites. Actually, it's Bex who has the three whites. Um, so we go into round three with him initially believing this. He's saying he wants to talk to the red and blue holders, but first he talks to Bex. And here is where they both discover that they think they are the one with the three whites. Bex is completely confident it's her. She's like, no, no, no. I mean, she's right, but it's just so
Right.
funny that she's like, no, it's me. And Bedalia also just sort of implicitly trusts that. You can see it in his face. He's crestfallen, like when the realization hits him. Um, so Bex and Ken talk things over. They realize the whites are sort of compromised. If they can't really be sure who has the three, they can't go ahead with this plan of collecting five. Although Bex is still adamant it's her. She's like, no, no, it is me though. Um, and Ken and Bedalia talk about the same thing. All the while, Ken is still never giving away that he knew where the black was to begin with, and that Amanfi had it after him.
Oh yeah, I thought it was funny to just see him like step into the role of helper for Bex and Bodalia for trying to figure out who could possibly have a fake white cube when he knows damn well and he's the one who started it all.
Yeah. But he's a poker player.
Yeah.
So I guess he's good at faking it. He's good at bluffing, and we saw it last time. He can hide what's really going on pretty well. And people seem to trust what he's saying.
Yeah, and then either then or maybe a little later, he says, this is a really fun game because the alliances you make at the start could shift depending on the results.
Yeah.
And yes, I agree. A game that shifts and can't be controlled by one player. Yay! Good.
Yeah, it's not episode 3 again.
Yes.
Uh, Next up, Bodalia then corners Amanfi, who's with Charlotte, presses him
Hmm.
again, and Amanfi finally confesses, yes, I gave you the black. So Bedalia is he's pissed. He just immediately goes into sort of rage mode. He says, "Well, I'm taking you to the death match. Like that's it."
Hmm.
Yeah, like that's a human reaction. I don't know why Amanfi told him. I don't know why he didn't just keep lying. Like tell him when the game's over.
I think that he didn't expect. I mean, maybe he should have because of the zombie game
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
He
it's the
should have
same thing. Yeah,
expected it. But I think he thought that Bodalia would react the same way he did, which is, okay, now I know. And then because Amanfi was like, okay, let's work together
yeah,
and
yeah,
figure this out type of thing. But that's not Bodalia. Bodalia doesn't
yeah,
want to screw anyone else over.
yeah,
And so he's not going to lie. And he just gets mad about it. Even if he wanted to lie, I don't think he could have at that point because he was so clearly mad.
yeah,
Um, and other people figure it out because I think later the two of them are talking in front of other people, and one of them is like, "Well, let's trade again," and Amanfi's like, "Yeah, let's go talk about it," and the
yeah.
others are like,
Yeah,
"Hmm,
it's the next thing that happens pretty much. Yeah,
yeah,
in front Amanfi's trying to fake protect Bedalia in front of the others and say no, no, he doesn't have the black. And yeah, this moment comes where Bedalia's like, well, let's trade back then. And Amanfi's just sort of waffles his way and says like, no, let's go and yeah. I think some other eyebrows are raised about that conversation in front of them.
yeah,
So at least a few people know something is going on between these two. Meanwhile, Allison agrees to give Indy a red in order to gain her trust, build a bit of an alliance, hopefully. And following from this, Amanfi realizes he's going to have to. He knows that Bedalia's not going to work with him. He's going to get picked for the death match if Bedalia ends the game with the Black Cube. So he's going to have to try his best to get a bit of protection. He creates a pact with Allison. He says he'll help her with winning the blues if she'll give him a token of life. Um, but he's really quickly scrambling around to do this. Like he suddenly needs to get Ken to help. It's all too last minute and too frantic. I, I think it's clear it's probably not going to work. And
yeah."
the round ends really quickly after this.
Yeah, somewhere along the line in there, also Ben apologized to Bex, and all seemed right in their world again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, but it kind of a side storyline, a B plot going
yeah,
on there. Um, yeah, it's just weird the way this all went down. That Amanfi told Allison everything that happened, and I think he just assumed that Allison would be like, "Oh yeah, that's the way the game goes." But no, she was not like that at all. She was much more like Bedalia.
yeah. It's kind of. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. I was going to say it's this moment that really ruins a man. It kind of.
Hmm.
It's like the nail in the coffin, I guess. But it's not just Allison who turns on him or doesn't trust him. I mean, they all just. By the time the death match comes,
Yeah,
spoiler, none of them want to keep him in it.
yeah,
So the results of this round are announced, and this time the red has the majority with 4 blocks, and we know that that is Indy, and I think most of the players know it's Indy too. It's time for round 4. Amanfi and Alison trade. She's now got 4 blue. Bedalia tells a room full of people that he has the black, and he wants help getting it back to Amanfi by
yeah.
somehow tricking him and doing like a series of SWAT. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and as Charlotte says, this is a strange thing to do.
Yeah, yeah,
And she thinks he felt cornered, but I still say he did it to himself. He cornered himself. If he had stayed calm and just traded it to someone else,
yeah,
he would have been fine.
yeah,
But again, it goes back to, oh my gosh, Amanfi lied to me, just like back in the zombie game. Like it was so horrible.
yeah. I have the same thought. I agreed with Charlotte. It was a bad move. I
Hmm.
thought, well, Bedali's got 2 options. Convince a room full of people to go along with a plan that they don't really get anything out of, or just convince one person to trade with you and lie to them. Like, that's the easier one, but he
Yeah.
just blurts it all out in panic mode, like you said. Bex and Indy swap. Although Indy only gains a green out of this, they realize this might happen because I think this is where Bex is kind of screwed up her notes a little bit. She's not sure if she had a red or a green. Uh, but yeah, they knew that that might happen and it's fine. They can sort it out next swap. Alison then goes to the dealer room to use her lock on Amanfi. Um, Firstly, that seems I'd forgotten about the lock part. Like when this happened, I was like, oh,
Me
I
too.
forgot
Me
that was part of
too.
the game because no one's used it. Or if, like you said, if they
Yeah.
have, they've cut it out because it maybe just doesn't affect the game, so there's no point in showing us. Um, but secondly, I don't like that they have to do it really conspicuously by going
Hmm.
into a room where everyone can see you. Like it's so obvious you're about to use your lock. I wish there was like a secretive way of them doing it somehow. Like I don't know,
Yeah, because in the previous one, like you mentioned in the I want
the
to call it
vault
jailbreak,
heist.
but the heist, right? Um, they had to go in there to say what they were doing anyway, so it
Yeah,
wasn't a special trip. This was a special trip, which, yeah, very, very obvious.
yeah. I also just don't understand why she's using it on a Manfi. I think he can't win now anyway, so it doesn't seem like there's any point.
I
I think she's just annoyed at him because he gave the black to Bedalia, and
Yeah, because she said he's prioritized winning over making relationships. And it's like, well, what? You
yeah, I just
know?
thought, so what? Just let
Yeah.
Bedalia lose. Like, I don't know why it bothers her so much, but you
Yeah.
know, it's the same with several players that we've talked about. They're taking it personally. They want to play the game without having to lie to people.
Right.
Fine. It's just I just don't think it's that big a deal.
Yeah.
And I have other thoughts later about what happens in the death match and why I don't know if they made the right decision. But um, so the round ends pretty soon after. The results are that red and blue both hold the majority with 4 blocks each, which is not a surprise. And Indy plans to trade with Ben and Ken to get their reds, now that she knows Bex didn't have one and it was a mistake. And David Tennant also reveals that Amanfi has been locked. And he knows it was He says, oh, well, I saw Alison go into that room. I kind of
Mhm.
thought this might happen. It's round 5, which ends up being the final round. Indy and Ben trade. She's got 5 reds now. Indy and Ken trade. And this is the moment where he seems he's not sure for a moment whether he remembered his cubes properly, so I got the impression he actually didn't write anything down. But Indy chooses to lock in, opens her case, cubes all light up red. Hooray, she wins. And all the other players' cubes light up too, and it turns out that Bedalia has the black cube, which, like we've said, probably some of them had figured out anyway,
Yeah.
if not all of them. So the consequences then of the game. Indy wins 2 tokens of life and 3 garnets. She gives her token of life to Bex. I guess because they're friends. They're in an alliance. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're being really skeptical, maybe she's keeping in a weaker player because that might help her. Um, and Bedalia chooses a man fate for the death match, which we knew was going to
Shocking.
happen. No
Yes.
surprises. He even says, "I think there's only room for one of us in this game." Ooh, there's fighting talk. Um, and
Showdown at high noon.
yeah. And Ken is very excited to watch this since he reminds us Bedalia and Amanfi have had this beef since the start, and especially since the zombie
And
game.
the other thing about Ken, he just got away scot free.
Yeah, yeah.
He
No
was the
one.
one who started all of this. He played everything in the background and then walked away scot free. Nobody was mad at him.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, they're all mad at Bedalia.
No, Amanfi.
Uh, they're all mad at Amanfi. But yeah, no, Ken, they don't go, hey,
Yeah.
Ken, you also lied and screwed over Amanfi. I'm, I was going to say unless he doesn't tell, but unless, I don't, unless they all believe that Amanfi had it from the beginning, but I can't
No, I
imagine
think at
Amanfi
some
not
point
telling
it
them
came
that.
out. I think at some
Yeah,
point either Ken said something or it came out,
yeah.
but
So. I guess they just
Yeah,
they
because at
don't.
one point, I remember Ken giving the whole thing, and I know that Amanfi told Allison everything that happened. So it
Yeah.
definitely was out there.
I guess Ken they just like Ken. He's quiet. He's very much in the background. He doesn't appear sort of openly ambitious in the game. Maybe they just reckon Amanfi's a bit off-putting because he talks about wanting to win and he's
Hmm.
screwed people over in another game, so it's all just piling up. It's time for the death match then. It is a game of tactical rock, paper, scissors. Now, this has been very controversial online already, and before I'd even seen the episode, there was a YouTube comment on our previous episode saying, "Hey, wait till you see the next death match."
I
So
thought when he said tactical rock, paper, scissors, I thought it was going to be rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock.
yes, me too. I thought it was going to be
Yeah.
extra things. And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of know this too, but no, yeah, it is rock, paper, scissors, but with a strange extra element added. So David Tennant reveals that the entire group has the opportunity to influence the outcome of this game. Cue quick cut of shocked faces, shocked reactions. All the players will have all the players will have three cards each, rock, paper, scissors, and the deathmatch candidates have 30 minutes to convince them all to give them a specific card and give a specific card to their opponent. All of the non-deathmatch players will then give whatever card they choose to the dealer, who in turn gives it to the players. They'll play rock, paper, scissors by choosing a card from their hand of 10 to play. First to five wins. Amanfi already knows that he's screwed. This death match is pretty much based on how well you're liked, the trust that you've gained in it. Well, with a bit of a caveat, it's pretty much based on the trust of the other players. He reckons he's lost everybody's trust today. So they all gather in a room, and Amanfi and Bedalia plead their cases. Amanfi tries to turn things around actually here by quite subtly putting Ken in the spotlight. And he said, well, Ken betrayed me first. So that just altered how I felt and how I had to play the game. I was really just reacting to that, which I thought is fair enough.
The problem
Way
is
to,
Ken isn't up for discussion.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
yeah, exactly. And then for Bedalia, it's kind of obvious what he's going to do. He talks about his integrity and he's been transparent in the game. He hasn't betrayed anyone. And he brings up Amanfi betraying him in the zombie game too, which I thought about
Hmm.
as the episode went on. Alison speaks up and just says she's going to back Vidalia. And then
Which is
her,
funny because earlier, just before that, Amanfi said, well, I'm counting on
yeah,
this person and this person and Allison. And then
exactly.
Allison's like, I'm supporting Bedalia. It's like,
Yeah.
oops.
It's such a blow to him straight away. If he
Yeah.
can't count on her, then it's not looking good. The group suggests that the two guys maybe just leave them to it and they'll discuss it on their own. Indy suggests everyone just making their own mind up and not coming to a group decision. She says maybe we just give the guys the cards, let them play it out. I think she means like let them just play rock paper scissors how it's supposed to
Yes.
be played.
Yeah. And she said that's the fairest way. And then Charlotte's like, no, it's not supposed to be fair.
Yeah,
Life isn't fair.
yeah, yeah. She's just like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think most of the other players feel that it's maybe we'll talk about it at the end because we have a listener question on how we feel
Hmm.
about how this death match is different from the other death matches. They then decide to focus on maybe just the same two cards, for example, rock and scissors. Just pick those two. Everyone can individually decide who they want to give which card to. And we see the players deliver their cards to the dealer. Of course, it's face down, keep a bit of the suspense going. Um, I thought here are are all of the other players just focusing on who are they just going to pick who they like the most, or is anyone considering just trying to get rid of the strongest player? That's what I
Oh,
thought. That no, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I absolutely think it's both. I think, well, some of them are like, I don't like Amanfi lying. Some of them prefer Bodalia's truth, as Ben even said it. Amanfi is up against someone who's basically incapable of lying. So
Hmm.
of course you want the person who doesn't lie to stick around, especially Ben, who has made a good relationship with Bedalia. You
Yeah,
don't have to worry about them stabbing you in the back.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and so that makes Bedalia less of a threat overall
yeah,
because and Amanfi has shown he is better at playing these games.
yeah,
So
definitely.
there's lots of good reasons to get rid of Amanfi at this
Hmm.
point.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's not just Ben. Maybe there are others who are kind of pretending, yes,
Yeah.
I want to keep Bedalia because he's a trustworthy guy, but actually they're thinking, I want to keep him because I'm probably going to beat him easier.
Oh, I'm sure Charlotte is. I mean,
Yeah,
Charlotte was on the team with Amanfi to begin, the main match this time, and now she's the one saying, "No, it's not supposed to be fair."
yeah, yeah.
So
So it's time for the deathmatch then, and we see Bedalia's cards lined up. He has almost all paper, but also a rock and a scissors. So someone hasn't stuck to the plan of only
right.
going for one of two of the card types. We don't find out who it is. Maybe we'll find out next time. Round one goes ahead. They both draw paper, so no one gets a point. Round two, Amanfi beats Bedalia's paper with scissors.
Woo.
I mean, Amanfi's obviously realized what's going on. He's got scissors. He might as well use them
Right.
now. Um, he then even says aloud, "You've done two papers in a row. It means you've got a lot of papers." And Badali's like, "Well, not necessarily, but yes, obviously." And in rounds three, four, five, Bedalia goes ahead, beats Amanfi with paper on rock. We have a kind of pointless flashback to everyone.
Yeah,
Bas
I felt the same way. It was like, okay, they felt they needed to put a flashback in because it is a staple
Yeah,
of the show, but it was a very silly flashback.
yeah. The flashback is everyone deciding they trust Bedalia more. They'll give him
Right.
paper, give Amanfi rock, but it was kind of obvious they were going to do that anyway. And we come back to round six of the game. Bedalia beats Amanfi again, and same in what ends up being the final round. Same again, Bedalia wins. The
I
others,
did I did like the commentary, even from Bodalia himself, about ooh, this is painful to watch because they stretched it out. I mean, they knew the outcome,
yeah,
and yet they stretched it out. It's like bringing the condemned to the hangman's noose, putting the noose around, and then being like, "But first, let me tell you a story." While he's standing there waiting, you know, it's like you're
yeah,
just dragging this out.
yeah. And I just felt there wasn't really any tension here as a viewer.
No,
I knew what was going to happen.
yeah,
So as much as they were trying to make it seem tense and maybe it's going to go
hmm
another way. We all know what's going to happen. Even a man face, just like I know I'm going.
right.
So the others join them. It's quite low key. They seem to feel a bit bad, especially Ben and Bex. And yeah, this is what you mentioned. Ben in his interview clip says he's the only one who says people wanted Amanfi out because he's a better game player. It's not really
Right.
about trust. And Amanfi gives Bedalia his garnets, congratulates him, and we pretty much finish the episode with Bedalia talking about the importance of social intelligence as well as academic smarts.
Yeah, because he said, well, social intelligence is part of being a genius, and that's what he did today. No, I mean, yes, that part of what he says is true, but the bigger issue was he just wasn't seen as a threat.
Yeah,
It wasn't that he was, if he had used social intelligence as part of the game, he'd have gotten rid of the black cube.
yeah, yeah. I thought the same. I
You know,
thought it's not that socially aware to lose your
yeah,
temper and just tell everyone, well, I've got the black.
yeah. I mean, he got lucky that this was the death match this time.
Yeah,
Because if
definitely.
it had been a game, I don't know that he'd have beaten. I mean, we don't know. It depends what it would have been and how it would have worked and all of that. But
Yeah,
he definitely got lucky. I think that this was the one that was in line for today.
yeah,
Because yeah, he wasn't seen as a threat. He couldn't get rid of the black cube. He got mad at Amanfi. Now, I will say, on Amanfi's part, he probably should have seen that coming and
Mm,
traded with someone else instead because of the way Bedalia had acted previously
yeah,
when Amanfi lied.
yeah,
But I don't think he expected Bedalia to completely implode the way he
yeah,
did.
yeah. We have a little preview of the next episode. There's not a whole lot here. I think the main match looks like some sort of betting. It looks like a table where you place bets for like roulette or something. I
Mm-hmm.
can't really tell what it is. We do see Indy in tears, so there's obviously a bit of tension and conflict. And Bex talks about not trusting him in speech marks. I think him might be Ben. That's my guess. I'm not sure.
Never.
So it's time for a couple of listener questions, final thoughts. Actually, before that, I will say there goes my prediction that Amanfi would win the show. So I'm out already because last time one of the listeners asked us for our predictions and I went for Amanfi. Um, so I'm out. I got it wrong. My runners up were Ken and Charlotte. I think you picked those as as your potential
I picked
winners. So
Charlotte. Yeah.
yeah. We have an email from Steph. Steph says, I have to say I'm disappointed that. Oh, this is sort of not really a question, just sort of an observation and opinion. I have to say I'm disappointed that ITV pulled the two-night showings of Genius games so early. Whilst I initially struggled to keep up with the games, I do appreciate the different format and feel the show would have benefited from a few more weeks for viewers to get into it. To help understand the games to us mere mortal beings, I really appreciated the explanation of the players' tactics visually. And Steph's noticed something that I didn't notice. I think I think she's talking about the little animations we see on the screen. She says they did this in the first two episodes that but not in the third. So not with the Codebreakers game. There weren't so many like animations on the screen and stuff. Not sure why they stopped this, as it was a way of including the viewers. Hope this continues in future episodes. Yeah, I agree. It's a it's simple extra layer of helping us understand, as well as David Tennant's narration. I like having the little cartoony figures on the
Yeah.
screen, and it just sort of simplifies it. And even when they were swapping their cubes in this episode, I like that they showed us on the screen what color was being swapped with
Mm-hmm.
what, unlike the tic-tac-toe death match last time when I had no idea what was on the other side of those tokens, so it all just felt meaningless to me. So yeah, I agree with Steph. I like having as much help as we can get when the games are explained. And then we've got this email from Megan. So this is what I've been alluding to throughout the episode. Megan asks, do you think that it's fair that the death match was decided by committee? It seemed to me that the main match is the time for alliances and working independently or as a team, but no matter what, you're on your own for the deathmatch. That allows for an underdog to remain in the game if they're skilled enough to win the deathmatch. I personally was very disappointed in this. I want my Genius game winner to be the smartest, not the most popular or least threatening. So, yeah, what do you? And again, a
Uh,
lot of people on YouTube have been like, "This is the worst deathmatch. I hate how they played this out." What do you think?
so, I mean, it's with both of us admittedly not having seen the original, my understanding is these types of social related death matches were in the original. This is
Okay.
true to the game because Ben said on his video he was waiting for something like this. He was worried about something like this, which is why one reason he has fought so hard to avoid going to a death match.
Yeah.
Um, when we were introduced to the game, one thing that they said was it is a game of strategy and games and social
Mm.
interactions,
Yeah.
which was a surprise to me coming in. There's nothing that says those social interactions have to end at the main match.
Mm.
So it's luck of the draw, and I don't have a problem with it. It's part of the game. It was bad timing for him, but it's part of the game. I don't see how. I mean, I understand it's the death match, and that's how it's different. So I won't say how it's different. But they ganged up on Paul in week one,
Mm.
day one. and essentially got him eliminated. Now, yes, he could have saved himself in the death match, but they sent him there and he lost. So in this case, Amanfi just what he did came back to bite him, and so it
Yeah,
happens.
I've got sort of mixed feelings about it. On one hand, yeah, I don't inherently have a problem with that being a part of the game, that maybe in a deathmatch you have to rely on your other players. Like
Hmm.
that's fine. I don't think it should be overused. And I agree with Megan that it's fun if maybe a player who doesn't have a lot of trust or who isn't that well liked actually just keeps surviving because they're really good at the death matches and
Hmm.
that's more interesting to watch. Um, but I do agree that I've said it already. As soon as it was explained that this was how it was going to work, I just felt like all tension dissipated. I felt like it was a foregone conclusion what was going to happen. So I just felt like the end of the episode wasn't that
Yeah.
exciting. That's all. And I thought, we're not really watching a game of rock, paper, scissors. It's almost pointless. Like they almost don't even need to play the game. So it's
I, I mean, I think it
even
was
it
another
is.
case where the players broke the format, like
Yeah.
Ben did. If it had been two different people,
Mm,
if there hadn't been such anger from dishonesty in this time, and it had just been, you know, let's say it had been last week, Ben and Pasha, Ken and
yeah.
Pasha. See, I did it again. Ken and Pasha, they might have all voted, to help Pasha in that case, to help a weaker player move forward.
Hmm.
But it could have just as easily been two more even people or two more well liked people.
Yeah.
If Bodalia had played better and handed it off to someone else, and because when they picked their deathmatch opponent, they didn't know that this was going to be what the match was.
Hmm.
So they don't know that they're gunning for someone who has lower social standing in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you just don't know.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a compromise and maybe it's okay to have influence of the other players in the deathmatch, but maybe the way that they were able to help was just too much in this game. Maybe them picking all of the cards for the players sort of,
Yeah,
helped it
that
lean in one direction too much. Maybe it would
that
have been
did.
better if they only picked half of their cards or something like that.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, and I do wonder: was it this much influence? Was it intended to be this much influence?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, what was production thinking when they created this particular game?
yeah,
Did they think it would just be a pile on like this, or did they expect, no, it'll be split, and so there'll be some tactics involved? I mean, it's called tactical tic tac toe, or I'm sorry, tactical rock paper scissors.
yeah,
So it was a lot. You're right. Essentially picked by everyone else at that point.
yeah,
So maybe I could agree with that. Some influence, but not totally overriding everything.
yeah. Uh, I don't have any other listener questions, but David, do you have any final thoughts? Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about in this episode?
Just I enjoyed this episode more than last week. Sorry, Ben. I mean, I do wish it had ended with a different death match, because I think Amanfi could have likely outplayed Bodalia in many of them, and he just got the worst one at the worst time for him. And I mean, nothing against Bodalia. He's not playing,
Yeah,
and Amanfi was. And I want to see people who are willing to put it all out there and play the game,
yeah.
not proclaim honesty.
I agree. Like I've said, I found the main match more enjoyable to watch because
Mm-hmm.
it was slightly less or probably a lot less complicated. So I think a lot of viewers would appreciate that more. Maybe this would have been a better game at the top of the series to start off, ease us in. So I like that. I again was disappointed with the way the deathmatch turned out, mainly because I wanted had predicted Amanfi to win, so it ruined my prediction. But also, I think Amanfi was a more interesting player to
Yeah.
watch. I don't know how much. Bedalia is going to bring to the show in terms of strategy and tactics. That's all. I like watching a man feel lie to people.
This is how much Podalia is going to bring in terms of strategy and tactics, right?
If you are listening to this rather than watching on YouTube, you'll have to watch the YouTube version to
Yeah.
find out what David is doing and what I'm laughing at. David, speaking of YouTube and places you can listen to the podcast, where can we find you? What are you covering right now apart from Genius Game?
Well, I am all over the place. And yes, you can find me on the Rob Has a Podcast Network or WeKnowSurvivor.com, where I podcast about why each player lost. And, we'll be recording the penultimate one of those for Survivor 48 tomorrow.
Ooh.
And then we will have the finale next week. So that will be a why blank one. And I think I have a prediction for who it'll be,
Mm.
and but you'll have to watch that podcast or listen to that podcast to find out. I've also been posting 3 or sometimes even more reality TV short videos every day on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, where I am at David Bloomberg TV. Right now, I've also been posting some about Genius Game, but mostly about Survivor 48. Also, a couple about the finale of The Amazing Race. And to make things easier, you can find all my various accounts on Linktree/David Bloomberg, or you can find me directly on Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg.
Yeah. And to make sure you're up to date with the Trader and the Traitors, Genius Game, Million Dollar Secret, News, or any other shows we may end up covering, you can follow on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Trader Podcast. You can, of course, leave comments on all those places. Again, YouTube has loads of different comments, people giving their thoughts, chatting, and even maybe arguing with one another about what they think of the episodes. So you can get involved
Not
there.
arguing on social media. Get
No,
out of
never.
here.
Never. I was kidding. That doesn't happen. You can also email me at thetradarpodcast@gmail.com, like a few of our listeners did for this episode. And I am promoting it again. You can leave a voice message. You can be heard literally on the podcast by visiting memo.fm/thetradarpodcast and leaving us a little voice note. It's super easy to use. And as always, it's really helpful to subscribe, follow, leave a nice review on whatever platform you're using. And finally, if you've been listening and enjoying and you want to help the podcast keep going, you could visit our coffee page. That is ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. All of those links are in the episode description, including David's links. Thank you for listening. We'll be back soon, recapping and analysing episode 5 of Genius Game with a slight delay. So, for various reasons, well, it'll take us a little bit longer to get to the next one. Don't worry if you see that it doesn't appear straight away. So, maybe 5 or 6 days after the episode airs in the UK, the episode is on its way, just not as soon as this one was. Until then, keep us on your radar.
And stay geniusy.